So here we are looking at FlashPanel, and at first glance it probably looks quite similar to what it did last Friday, but upon further review we can see there's a couple of changes here. So at first the home dashboard looks exactly the same, and directory is the same, but as we move here, what used to be tools is now assets, and tools has moved over to the right. So this new tab, assets, is where we're going to focus our presentation today, as well as on settings and also on the end user view. So in those three areas we're going to address today. If you would like a full demonstration of the product, we hold weekly webinars every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's the East Coast of the United States. And you can get a full overview, about an hour long, of exactly everything you can do with FlashPanel and how to help you manage your domain using that. So if you are looking for a full overview, this presentation is probably not for you. If you do want to see that and you can't make it to the weekly webinar, you can always go to flashpanel.com/webinars and view a recorded webinar that will explain everything you can do within FlashPanel. In addition, if there's someone who couldn't make this call and you'd like to forward that link along, feel free to do so. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to click on the Assets tab. So everyone should be able to see my screen that says docs/scanned and a view of all the exposures here. So before I go on, I'm going to explain that the domain sync that links all of your directory information was the only sync that was happening on your domain until now. Now we have a secondary scan, which we call the asset scan. If you click here, you can see that we're now in the settings, and you can view the last time your assets have scanned with your domain, and you can see we're actually in process of one right now. And depending on how many documents you have on your domain, this may take a couple of minutes, hours, or even a full day, depending on how large your domain is. So the directory sync and the asset scan are different. When one runs, the other one will run along with it, but you can initiate them manually independently. So you can always click here, click Yes, Proceed, and it will initiate an asset scan. You can also schedule them. You can schedule them here, and as many as you like here during the beta, I believe, and that'll be done automatically. So back to assets, and what exactly is this assets visibility tab going to provide you with? Never before until now have you been able to look at all of the docs shared and shared with your domain. That means that all of the docs that are created at your domain and all the docs that are created by someone else's domain that are shared with someone on your domain will all appear here, which is incredible, because without FlashPanel, just using the control panel, you cannot view that information. So it's really divided into two categories, and the first is docs, and that's all the internal docs at your domain, and the second is the externally owned docs. Pretty self-explanatory. So first we're going to address the internal docs. And over here on the home page, or the overview of the assets, you can see all the domains that are shared, all the assets that are shared publicly with a link, external, domain, and domain with a link. And the new exposures are new exposures since the last time you scanned for assets, and total exposures is total, and that could be in between the time you last scanned and now. So it'll actually pull this information real time for a few of these exposures. And over here you can see domains shared with, so you can see who you've shared with the most. In this case, we have Better Cloud and a couple of other domains here. So by clicking on each of these links, it'll take you to the same place as clicking here at Docs, and we can see that we can filter through all of the docs on your domain. So at the moment, we just have docs being pulled through, but in our next release, we're going to have Google Sites as well. So for now, we are able to view the docs, and you can do them and filter on 3 different parameters at a time. So the first being exposure, and you can search for public with a link, external, or even private. So let's keep all public docs for now, and we can see that we have about a dozen right here. And this is signified by the shared settings with the globe here, similar to how you would see it in Google Docs. So what can you do with this? You can edit permissions. In this case, we're going to look at the shared contacts export, and this owner is George Tang. You can see the size, although the size is not showing here because it's a Google Doc. You can see the amount of people it's shared with and the time it was last updated. So all the information you need to see what's happening with that particular doc. So you can see we can click Edit Permissions, and we can do three things here. We could change the owner, add a collaborator, or remove a collaborator. And I'll show you all three. To change an owner, you can type in a new owner. So I'd like to be the new owner of this doc, and as the admin, I can do that. I can choose to receive an email about this change, as well as choose how the current owner will be able to access or not access the document. So George, perhaps we'd like him to continue to edit, or just view, or actually remove him as one of the collaborators. So if we click Update here, this will change from George's name to mine. So now we can see the shared contact export. I am now the owner. Second thing you can do is add a collaborator. So we already have 7 collaborators on this document here, and let's add another. Let's add Stacy, and let's give her the ability to edit this document. And we can give her an email as well. So now Stacy will be added to the list of users who are collaborating on this document. Lastly, you can remove a collaborator. As we know that we've just added Stacy, if we don't want her to be on it anymore, we can now remove her. So she's no longer shared, and it's gone down from 7 to 6 people shared with. So we can see that taking effect immediately. So you can do one at a time, or you can bulk edit actually. And you can actually select all. That's if there's more than 25 per page. You can select all, and they'll all be selected, and you can bulk edit that way. So what else can we do, and what else can we filter by? We can filter by owner by user, owned by org unit, the title of the document, who it's shared with, last updated, doc type, file extension, that's such as JPEG or Google Doc, and doc size. So if we want to combine filters here, we can type in my name, and we can see that all public docs owned by Eli.Winterbaum are all here. We can also filter by last updated. So if we want to see if we've updated any in the last month, it looks like 3 out of the 5 were updated in the last month. So you can combine up to 3 filters at a time, except when using shared with, and this is only 1 at a time. So you can see if I've ever shared with perhaps a Gmail account. Let's see the results. Doesn't look like I've shared with any Gmail accounts. Let's see if I've shared with our other domain, BetterCloud. Looks like we've shared 1 document with this domain. So this is a useful tool if you'd like to see if perhaps your competitor's name or maybe someone's personal email address. So now that we can see all of the docs, we can also click into a particular document. Let's look at this one. And we can see all of the sharing settings. And we can see that all of these people are shared with, although the document is shared privately. So only people explicitly granted permission can access. This is exactly how you would see it within the doc itself. So we can toggle to live sharing settings, and this will show you real-time and pull using the API who is actually shared, who can edit, who can view, all the collaborators on the document. We can see George is the owner, and these are all the collaborators. We can always add whoever we want, just as you would if you were in the doc itself. And this person will be added to this live sharing list. Great, we have one extra here. So I'm going to remove myself to show you what it looks like to go into the document. Be sure to save this. So now we're looking at a document that I'm not shared with, but I am the administrator of the domain, and now I can not only see what this document is called and who it's shared with, I can actually go into the document itself. I'll be granted edit rights and edit as a collaborator. I can go in and edit the document. So it's pretty incredible that you can go into a document, make changes, and this will be saved for everybody. So it is important to realize that my name will appear here now as I just added myself. So if I don't want to continue being one of the collaborators of this document, right after I've edited the spreadsheet, I could go in and remove myself. And what you see here with the audit log means that as the administrator, for compliance purposes, we've added an audit log specific to the assets. So we can save this information, and let's take a look at the audit history. And this is the audit history for all the actions I've taken on this particular document. So you can see in the past 2 minutes, I've taken 4 actions, and they're all listed here. If you have more than one administrator, they'll show up here as well, or if you've given explicit access using access control, you can see the user's name here as well. So we can always go back to the search results. Like anywhere else in the application, you can always export this to a spreadsheet, and if you use filters, it'll only show you the filtered results. So I always like to start with exposure, and now we can see all public with a link and see how many we have here. So perhaps all of these were mistakenly shared publicly. You can bring these into compliance this way. So that's the internal docs. And now I'm going to show you what it's like to search for the externally owned docs. So we can search here for an actual email address or a domain. We can look for BetterCloud. We've shared quite a few. And these are actually documents that are owned by BetterCloud that have been shared with at least one user of your domain. So this is a great way to see who is sharing documents with users of your domain. And we can go in and click this information. So let's look at this one. And the reason you can't see the edit doc or preview doc is because this doc is not owned by your domain. So you can actually only view who it's shared with. And as you can see, it's shared with Sarah. I'm currently logged on this domain, test.cloud8labs. This is our test domain that we use for app development. So we can see this information and see the last time it's updated, and we can always ask Sarah, perhaps, how come this person has shared this with you if it looks like it shouldn't be shared with that user. So that's about it for assets. We'll be adding some more functionality in the next 2 releases. One will be the adding of sites, and another will be compliance. So auto-complying and creating policies. And you can say this user or this group or this organizational unit cannot share publicly, and if they do share publicly, you will be notified. So look for that in our next release. So that's really part 1 of today's webinar, which is all about the Assets tab. And the second part I'd like to show you is the end user view. So before we look at the settings, you can see that you can toggle between the admin and the end user. And as the administrator, you'll always have these 2 views, but as an end user, they will only have the end user view unless you've given them access with the access control. So before we click in this to see what it looks like, let's look at the settings for the access control. Excuse me, the end user settings. As the administrator, you can decide whether the users on your domain can self-edit their profile. So this is actually really useful for a lot of domains because if you have 50, 500, or 5,000 users, you may not want to update all the information manually. If someone gets a new cell phone, they have to email you saying, can you please update my cell phone? If they change home address, they have to email you and ask you to update it. With this, they can do it themselves, and you can actually choose which fields they can edit themselves, so only the ones you'd like them to do, they will be able. So we haven't checked off title, manager, department, company, assistant, because these are all what we call vitals. The work phone is probably going to stay the same, and maybe we want them to be able to update their own mobile phone. Their work email isn't going to change, so let's keep that blank so no issues arise. We can save this information. So now when we go into the end user view, we're now toggling between the admin and the end user view. So this is what it'll look like for all of the users of your domain when they log in. A nice picture of themselves, the ability to edit their profile. They can view what's listed, and they can also view all of the employees in your domain, all of the groups, and company shared contacts. In the middle, we have a link to Google Guru. This is our informational and educational website on Google Apps. So if a user is a beginner of Google Apps, this is a great place to go to learn everything there is to know about Google Apps. And you can browse by level, beginner, intermediate, and guru, or by topic. So if a user has a particular issue, or they don't know how to use, let's say, Google Docs, they've never used it before, we have some training videos here and also some tips and tricks for the admin. So this is a really great place for users to go. So let's look at the directory. You can search for employees here. Let's look for Gail. We found her. And then here we'll display all of her information. Currently we only have her email address displaying. It'll also show you who is in a group. Let's look at this user. We have the VP of Operations here. Picture shows up. This is a good way for users in your domain to get to know each other as well by face. And we can also see all the groups that he's in. So if we click on groups, we can actually view this group here, view all of its members, and even view the postings. So we can view all the groups here, and now your users won't have to ask, who's in this group? And I know as administrator of my domain, people always ask me, am I in this group? How come I'm in this group? And will you remove me from this group? Those are common questions. Lastly, we can look at company contacts. And these are what we call shared contacts. So we can look at this user, and we can see that he's the company, 3DM Studios, he has a work phone, email address, and we can see all this information here. So this is a great place for your users to go, in addition to Google Contacts, to view your company shared contacts. Lastly, users can go into my profile, view all the groups that they're a member of, view their doc space consumed as well as email space consumed. They can view their department. Maybe a new hire can come here to look at everyone they're working with. So this is really useful. And then users can edit the information that you've made available to them. So we can change this information here, but anything that's grayed out cannot be changed.